Ready? Yes.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the June 13th City Council meeting. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Hagan?
Here.
Councilmember Bellinger?
Here.
Councilmember Crummett?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Swift?
Here.
Mayor Alves?
Here. Okay, let's start off with, let's see what do we got going here. Consent calendar. All right, these are, before we get into all this, is there some requests to remove items?
I'd like to pull items 5 and 6.
5 and 6 are pulled.
Yeah, and I'd like to pull item 7. I'll be leaving the room at that point.
5, 6, and 7 are being pulled. And there are questions regarding the general cost of these. I have some questions. So maybe before we get into voting this, can we talk about it?
We got which item?
The districts.
4 through 8, technically.
Yeah, I think they're all the same.
Well, you know what? Why don't we do this? Why don't we pull item number 4 too, and use that as a jumping ground for any general questions about the districts?
Okay, we can do that.
And Mayor Alves, regarding item number 2, I'll be abstaining from check number 9860.
All right, and that's from what item? I mean, from where?
Item number 2.
Number 2. Okay. One of the questions I have for staff before we vote on this is that I noticed reading through there the cost of things and the breakdown. And one of the things that caught my eye is we're paying its engineer $400 and some a month. What does that engineer do for that $400 and something a month on these districts? It's in there. And let me find it.
Which one are you specifically looking
I
at?
don't remember which one I looked at the time, but I did catch my eye, and I was trying to figure out what justifies $430 some odd bucks a month on these. It was probably Bellaterra, I think is one I was looking at.
Let me pull up one of those.
Okay, and if you look at the breakdown, the cost, you'll see that. And then there's also another issue there, a couple actually, that I wanted to discuss.
So that, if I could,
You can.
that is Harrison Associates.
Yes, it is.
Is the firm that monitors and handles all of these, and that professional services is that.
What are
It is
they doing for
$431 a
What are
quarter.
they doing for that money every month is my question.
It's not a monthly amount, it's quarterly amount?
Quarterly, which is 4 times a year?
Yes.
So that's 1,600 and some odd, it's about 1,700 bucks. And what is it they do for that?
Well, they did all of these reports, they monitor
So they do the
the
reports for that?
activities.
Okay.
They do all of that work.
Okay, so they do all the clerical stuff.
Pretty much. I mean, they send it through us, we review it, we give them input. They compile all the reports, they do all the work having to do with the assessments and all of that also.
All right. So the staff does it after they're done with their clerical work, you get the footprint of it, and then you're going to add or subtract whatever it is you think the city needs to do.
Right.
And then it's going to move forward.
Right.
So
So
the city
we,
charges a fee on top of that as well.
Correct.
Is that a quarterly fee as well?
no, that's an annual fee that's embedded in there.
Is that a percentage?
So the general government it increased 4%. From
From the previous
prior
year, I saw that.
Yeah. So there was a 4% increase on that.
And what is that increase based on?
That's some of the conversations we've been having about different growth between last year, the current year, and what we anticipate next year.
Growth of what? I don't understand. Explain me.
Costs of our services.
Oh, your services. Okay, so the cost of doing business has gone up approximately 4% in terms of dealing with these particular items.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, now you've explained it to me. Okay, I'm good with that. Now, we want to move on for this consent calendar, and we're going to see here the following alternatives, and that's not what I'm looking for. Here we go. Consent calendar. These items are considered routine in nature and are acted upon by a single action unless requested by an individual council member or member of the public for special consideration. We've removed 4, 5, 6, 7, and 2. I will accept a
Excuse me, Mayor,
Yes.
I'm sorry, no, we didn't move two, I just am omitting
well,
myself
two is still on
from
board?
one particular
You just
check number and
abstained.
two,
Okay, you won't be able to vote on the, okay,
just
very
on
good.
one check number.
Okay, so let's go back here. We're going to vote on the balance minus 4, 5, 6, 7, and I will accept a motion.
Move to approve the balance of the consent calendar.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. I believe you said aye?
Yeah, aye.
5-0. Very good. All right, let's go back to 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah, regarding item 4, I'm okay with it. I just was going to use it as a platform in case, Mayor, you or anybody else had any questions about the LLDs, but I'm fine with it.
Okay? So,
So I would move to adopt item 4 of the consent calendar.
okay.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. That leaves the balance of 5, 6, and 7.
Okay, and regarding items 5 and 6, if I may take those together, I think those, the reason,
Yeah.
So 5 and 6 are going to go, and you're going to step out on 7?
I will step out on 7,
Okay,
yeah.
so 5 and 6, motion, please.
Yeah, move to approve items 5 and 6 of the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. And we have an abstention. And now we're going to take item number 7. You'll be removing
And I'm
yourself? Okay. We'll accept the motion for number 7.
Move to approve item 7.
We have a
Consent
second?
Calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, very good. Mr. Swift may come back, and we'll move on to, let's see, we're going to move on to staff communications, it looks like. Police Department activity report for April.
Thank you, Mayor. These are the communications that were not on the last meeting. So we have the Police Department activity report for April, along with our Animal Control report for April. And then we have our StanCog Citizen Advisory Committee quarterly update included. If you have any questions, let us know.
Okay. Are there anyone in the audience who wants to address any of these items? Police Department activity report, Animal Control report, and the Citizens Advisory Committee quarterly. If there is, please approach the podium. Anyone online would like to have any input? I don't hear anything from anyone, so we're going to move it back to the council. Council members, any questions?
I have none.
I have none.
No.
None, so I guess we'll move on to matters presented from the audience, correct?
We'd like to give you some updates first. I
Sure,
just
go
wanna
right
make sure
ahead.
Everybody,
Absolutely.
Claire, do you have anything you wanted to report on? Okay, I do have an update on my end regarding the senior housing request for qualifications.
Okay?
When the project closed, we did not receive any proposals. So what I did was reach out to each of the companies or firms that had inquired when we had put it out and were asking questions and trying to get additional information, and just basically asked why they weren't able to apply or what they felt about the RFQ that was an issue. One of them had said that they had looked at possibilities and determined that they could not get a project to pencil out there, that if a project was 100% affordable, they could have made something work. The only way that they saw to do a mixed income project, which is what we talked about, having some affordable, some market rate, and some meeting that in between, which is where we're identifying our need on the income, was with a private activity bond with incomes of the 80 to 120% AMI, which is the median income. However, the rents we would need to collect would not offset the initial capital cost, and so they would still need some sort of subsidy to make the project feasible, which is the same thing RHF had told us when we came to them for a project. I have 3 other firms that had reached out asking questions. One of them has not responded back to me, but was interested in doing some type of project and was open to discussion, but I haven't heard back since then. I had another company out of Ripon that was interested in discussing some type of project, but didn't respond to the RFP. And when asked, they just said, oh, I didn't realize it had a deadline on it. And then the last one is still open to discussing a project, but didn't seem interested in responding to an RFP. So my question to you is, I do have for companies that are interested in doing a project, it just doesn't seem like they want to put things together to actually submit as a proposal through the request. Do you want me to continue working with them to see if I could get them to provide something, and then maybe as they're providing information, I can bring them here?
Counsel.
Discussion? Or
Any
do
questions for
you want me to
staff?
put it out for another 30 days?
I think that, we've been working on this for a while, and, the concept of getting new senior housing in town, we had the subsidized housing project come in with the Housing Authority, and that got, decisively shut down by the community. And then we've reached out to do a different project, sort of market rate, and we got no responses. I'm very surprised at that. But at this point, I think we've done all the work we can for this time. We've really tried, and we're not getting the response. I don't think at this time we need to waste staff's time or the resources of this town to pursue this. I think we just let this thing ride for a little bit, and then, we'll revisit at a later date.
Any other input?
Yeah, I can understand their concern with having to put together, if they're proceeding this as a whole RFQ, and therefore you're going to be paying somebody, hours upon hours upon hours to put something together concretely. So I think it'd be interesting to entertain the notion of, talking to them if they do have expressed some interest, because I imagine RHS might be in the same exact boat. That they'd entertain it, but,
Yeah.
so if
And
we
that was
need to start.
RHF's original response was that's what they specialize in, and so they don't do RFPs or RFQs because it's something that they're constantly
Sure.
doing. They don't have to be competitive in applying for something.
Right.
So,
So, if we need to start getting a little closer to get this dance going together, then I think that if they're willing to discuss informally, either they could be doing that, with you, or if we want to have a committee of a couple council members, meet up with them as well.
Okay.
Just, okay, guys, here's what we're looking at, here's what you're looking at, how close, because I'm sure they don't want to spend a lot of time and money so far without knowing exactly what, where we're at, but I think it's worth pursuing still, under that context.
Any other input?
I'm just gonna say, I'm not necessarily willing to drop it and walk away from it. I'd like to continue the talks and learn a little bit more of, we asked for the RFQ, this is kind of where we were shooting for. Come back and tell us what you can do. You can't do that, and that's why they didn't submit. Well, what could you submit with what we've put out as an offer? What could you get that's as close as you could potentially build to get to that, and see what they come back with? They may come back with a different project, it may not be what we were looking for, but it might meet 75, 80% of what we were looking for in the first place. That's a better shot at than nothing, potentially, if we could get a project to go.
and I do have one
but
that
it's worth a
said he
talk,
was
I
working
think.
on it, and he would try to submit something to us in the next few weeks. He said he was going to work out numbers for me.
I would agree with both statements there, as far as what you both said.
Okay.
Moving forward with it.
My question is for staff. My question is, dealing with this now for how long?
Couple years.
Okay, and what have you learned in a couple of years?
I've learned that what we're specifically asking for doesn't
unattainable.
appear with these companies that it's attainable for them.
That's right. So,
Not to say that there aren't companies that specialize, but the ones that we're obtaining interest from, it's not their specialty. Or they specialize in affordability, and so they're looking to do affordability projects, the 100% affordable.
like
'cause
we
that's
did,
the
like the
most-
one at the auction yard that didn't fly.
Correct.
Okay.
Might not necessarily have a housing authority. We haven't gotten that far into who would be that. But it's my understanding, most of those type of projects is what attracts them to building those type of construction, because then they can apply to the state and federal government for the
Tax
tax
credits,
credits.
bingo.
And you have a better chance of, when you're competing with other agencies for those monies, you have a better chance of obtaining the tax credits and the subsidies if you're partnering with the housing authority.
Okay, you've
the
had,
local housing authority.
in 2 years that you've done this, do you think we have an opportunity to get somebody to move forward?
I don't want to say no, because there probably is somebody out there. I just don't know how we're not catching them. But I don't know how how it would move forward. I mean, they might have an idea of something, and then we have an idea, and we're pretty adamant about what we're looking for, and clear on how we want it to be done and how we want it to be proposed, and that might be something that they're not able to fulfill.
I see our problem as the limited resources.
Correct.
I think that's our biggest issue here, and I think unfortunately, I don't see that changing in the near future. But if this council wishes to pursue this, that's what we'll do. Do you want to put a time frame on this, gentleman, or do you want this to go on forever?
I could give you a report back at the next meeting. Well, the next meeting is a week from now, but I can provide an update at the next meeting and see where I can get from them then, and then provide another one.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, it sounds good.
Sound good?
Sounds reasonable.
Councilman
I'd at
Crummey,
least
is that all
like
right?
to see where it
All right.
goes.
Okay.
So we have a
I'll continue to move
consensus that we're
forward
willing to
with all of
extend it to the next meeting and see what you come up with.
In the meanwhile, do you want me to, I thought about putting the RFQ back up for another 30 days or putting it on an ongoing. I just don't know whether that would be helpful or not.
Well, you know who's out there.
I know who's out there
You know
that
who's
was
out there.
interested this round,
My
yeah.
recommendation is you regenerate communications with those who seem the most likely,
Okay,
instead of going out fishing for something we don't know that's out there.
okay,
Then we can focus on those who had some interest, and maybe we can move from there.
okay.
That sound reasonable?
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, I'd like
Okay.
to find out how,
Good idea.
I'd like to find out how far away we are. Are we talking apples and oranges, or are we talking, I mean, it might be a small gap to fill potentially, or it could be a huge,
I
Rather,
didn't catch the first
disconnect.
half of what you were saying, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, I'd like to see how far apart we really are. Like,
Okay.
is it, are we talking apples and oranges, or are we talking, you know what I'm saying, like in
you
other
want to know
words-
what the difference is between consummating a deal versus not. And that's
Correct,
what we're
yeah.
looking for, is that gap. What's the gap we're trying to fill, and can we do it ever? Because if we can't, obviously we can't, but if we can, then we can try it.
Okay,
But that's what we're looking for more than anything else, is what it is we need to do to get one of these individuals to participate. That's our bottom line, because if we can't find that out, what are we doing?
okay.
Fair enough, gentlemen? All right, let's move on.
Give us something like, well, we might have to bend a little.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we good?
And you had made a comment, and I just wanted to make
Oh,
sure I
yeah,
got it.
it's similar to Councilman Hagan.
Okay, I just wanted
see
to make sure.
If they come back with something like, this is what we could do, it's not quite the RFQ, I'd still like to entertain and listen to what they have to say.
Okay,
All
I
right?
don't want to be hard and fast, you have to be the RFQ,
yeah.
requirements. If they're close, I'd like to hear.
Will do.
All right,
Thank you.
moving on. Matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time the item is called. Before we go forward, do we have to open this up to public, this the conversation we just had? Do we have to go back out here?
No, that was a staff report asking for direction, and the council gave
Very good.
staff direction to continue with
All right, good to
moving
know.
forward.
All right, the public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address city council on any item not on the agenda that is within the authority of the city council. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. The determination of whether an item is within the authority of the city council is a discretionary decision made by the mayor. Okay, we're going to open this up. If you have something you'd like to discuss with us this evening, please come to the podium and give us your name and let's talk.
I'm Ann Shaddix, and first of all, let me tell you how really disappointed I am in any discussion of putting this aside. I feel like something's wrong. Every town is building senior housing. Why can't we attract someone? Is there a consultant out there that could help us develop the right program for Escalon and make the right presentation to get someone in here? I can't believe for a minute that we can't get someone in here, because we're not asking for low income. We are asking for regular income. We're asking for help for the medium income people, so it's profitable for them. Something's wrong with how this is being done, and I'm asking if there's another way we could go about it. And I'm asking you to please not drop this until every stone has been turned and that we are absolutely sure there's no way to proceed.
Well, I think that's a reasonable request, Ann, and believe me, I believe we are doing everything we can. I don't know if we've approached the consultant concept yet, but maybe that's something we can address. But I understand your frustration. We're as frustrated as you are. All right, is there anyone else like this evening to come up? Please come up and give us your name.
Betty Bennett, and I'm here again about the landscaping.
What do you have on your mind this evening, Betty?
The medium is getting full of weeds again,
Okay,
and the ivy is starting to grow over the fence,
Okay.
and it's not trimmed. And I saw them out there doing the sprinklers on the 2 parks, but they have not been out there on the Brennan side or the medium side. So who checks to make sure? 3 months ago, they said they were gonna do the sprinklers over there, reroute them and put new ones in and turn off the ones. So who's checking to make sure that our $2,500 a month is being accounted for, that I don't have to go out there and check the weeds and stuff every month?
well, I think what we can do is suggest maybe the staff get in, take a look at what's going on there, and then they'll get back to you. How's that?
That sounds good, because I know that Justin had a meeting with them, and they told him they were going to be addressing the sprinklers out there, but I don't think they have.
Well, I think they'll be able to get back to you within, what, a week?
You know, so
Yeah.
I would.
Is that reasonable?
I would just like their feet held to the fire. If we're gonna pay them
We will have an
$2,500,
answer,
then I
Betty.
don't want my tax dollars being,
I don't blame you. We will have an answer for you in a week or less.
I appreciate that, because.
And if you don't get it-
Because I get after the gardeners myself.
I like it.
So if I have to, I will go down there to their place and I will,
Good girl. What you can do for me, if it doesn't happen in a week, just give me a call, personal call.
okay, I
All
will
right?
do that.
And I'll do what I can next. But I'm pretty sure staff will handle it for you.
Yeah, if not, I'm going to do a memo to all our neighbors and have them start calling Grover.
Oh, very good, very good. So Grover is the contractor on that one? Okay, very good. Thank you. You're welcome. Anyone else? Just your name, please, and state your business.
Carrie Lee, I live on 1438 Riviera.
Okay,
I'm here to talk about permit fees for solar.
okay,
I came in, I'm looking to add panels to my existing solar system. It was put in 2015. I came into the office and I asked what that permit fee would be, and they said it would be $450. That's for I had to clarify because that sounded high to me for a project that's going to be a $2,400 project. I'm going to pay $450 in solar permit fees. So I clarified it, and that is the fee that the city is charging for a complete system up to 12 kVA, as if I was redoing what I did in 2015 and paying again for new connection to the grid, new meter, new everything, right? That's not what I'm doing.
Are you doing any engineering change in it at all? Do you have an engineer at all?
No.
So everything, the footprint's there. What you're adding is how many more panels?
8 panels.
8 more panels. And what, basically, it's connecting 2 wires and then connecting the panels.
There's a ground.
Oh, ground, okay. Good enough.
So it's 3 wires and a ground. It's much like if you were putting a 220 outlet in your garage and you're running it back to your panel.
Okay.
And they want $450. So then I asked, well, what if I'm adding 1 panel? 1 panel is $300. $450 would be the permit fee. That's what I was told. And I was told that was approved by the city council. Okay? So I decided I'm going to call Ripon to see what they charge. I called, I talked to Todd, the building inspector there, and he said, no, our fees are $4.25 a panel, plus a $30 fee for something, I kind of missed it. He said, be under $100 to do it in the city of Ripon, but not here. Okay, since I have looked, and the $450 is the maximum allowed by law. I did find that. If you go to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, the California Solar Permitting Guideline. Let me find my stuff here. It says, current state law requires that fees charged by a local enforcing agency for permit processing and inspection cannot exceed the reasonable cost of providing the service for which the fee is charged. In other words, fee revenue must only be used to defray the cost of permit processing and enforcement and cannot be used for general revenue purposes. And then it states 3 sections of the law, which I have printed out here, and every section basically is saying you can only charge what it costs you, city. You cannot make money off of this. Okay, that doesn't appear to be what's happening here. If somebody wants to put a $300 item on their house and it's going to cost $450 to permit it, then I can't fathom that, right? It also says the legislature finds that and declares that oversight of permitting fees for solar systems is a matter of statewide concern and not a municipal affair. That's why they put these guidelines into place. The state wants solar, and I'm asking for your support to get this looked at and rectified. Not, I look at this for the community, and I look at the person who wants to put solar on their house, and this year they can afford their system, and they put a inverter in, and they pay the $450, they spend whatever, $15,000 or whatever. Next year, they can afford to put 3 more panels. The year after that, they can put 5 more panels. They can grow. These things are modular. They're not $450 every time you turn around. So I would like to have that addressed.
All right, staff, is it possible that we can have an explanation drawn up here and maybe submitted to Mr. Lee and also to the council why this cost is what it is?
Sure.
All right, good enough. Mr. Lee, go ahead, Mark.
If I may, since this is just put during public comment and it's not on the agenda, either to have a consensus or 2 members to add it to an agenda for discussion.
Right.
Or a consensus as to have staff bring it up at a meeting.
Update on it at the next.
How about an update on it that will address these issues?
I think we should put it on the agenda to discuss, because from the information I've just been told, it doesn't sound right to me.
Do you want to make that motion?
I would make a motion to put the issue of adding solar panels to the next agenda for discussion.
Yeah, I'll
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. So where do we go from here? We have it on the agenda for next meeting?
Put it on the agenda for next meeting.
Very good.
Yeah, and just to clarify for everybody, it's not really a motion, it's just a consensus.
Right.
2 council
All right.
members ask for it.
Very
and I
good.
said-
So in the meantime, because this gentleman is doing his project and we are discussing what's going on, is it okay to say, let's not bother him anymore until we decide what we're going to do?
Council
You
can't
submitted
discuss
application?
or take any action at this time. Essentially, it's going to stay status quo until it's on the agenda for the next meeting. It'll be
Which will be next
discussed,
Monday.
and if
Next Monday.
Okay, so
if appropriate, at the
Back-to-backs.
Can you
Meetings.
retroactively credit him back, or?
I was just going to ask if you applied yet. Have you applied
No,
yet?
I haven't.
Okay, he hasn't submitted his building permit
I have
application.
them, I'm ready to apply, but not at $450.
Yeah, so it hasn't been, we haven't assessed the
I
charges
have all
yet.
the paperwork.
thank you for bringing it to our attention. Come back next meeting, we'll talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Is there anyone else out there this evening who'd like to get something off their chest or some item that's got them thinking about something? Please come to the podium, give us your name.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Sean Stroman. I'm here to discuss the topic of the month, and that is the swimming pool. But before I begin that, I want to second what Ann Shattuck said. I'm really disappointed, and I think we have to figure out what the stumbling blocks are on senior housing. And I'll leave it at that. But at the last council meeting, Councilman Bellinger brought up a line item where the city was going to encumber about $26,000 in funds for pool maintenance. And what was asked was, what are we getting for $26,000? And Mr. Collins noted that, well, those are the maintenance fees. But my question is, if you read the agreement in the swimming pool facilities agreement executed in 2000 between the school district and the city, it says that, and that $26,000 was for maintenance fees. However, in paragraph 5.A, it notes that each party agrees that while the pool facilities are under its responsibility for care and maintenance, it will care for and maintain the pool facilities in a responsible manner. I guess my question to you all is, do we really think that the school district is holding up their end of the bargain? The basis of the agreement is that I forget the exact percentages, I paraphrasing, but I believe that the school district is responsible for 61% of the contract and the city is responsible for 39%. And we've heard a lot of, well, the school district is saying, but what are we doing to hold the school district accountable? I guess my question for, not necessarily you all, but for the city council, for the city attorney is, has the city council written a formal letter to the school board that says, you're in violation of the swimming pool facilities agreement that you executed with us in 2000? Because how many times can Mr. Collins go out and continue to put Band-Aids to give us an operational swimming pool when the school district isn't doing anything? If they're not going to do anything, fine. But right now, you all are putting Band-Aids on a problem that, quite honestly, is only 39% of your responsibility. So I guess that was my question for the city attorney. But more so, I think that there's a gap. And there's a gap between city council and the school district. I can't speak for what caused that gap, but unfortunately, as a constituent, I believe that our citizens are suffering with not having a pool that's open because of that gap. And so I guess what I'm asking, as you all know, June 30th is the end of Superintendent Costa's term as superintendent. I think we should look at this as a turning over the leaf. And if there were differences of opinion when he was superintendent, fine. But at the end of the day, when there's a difference of opinion between city council and the school district, the constituents should actually be the last people to suffer. We should work together. I mean, we're a town of 7,500 people, for crying out loud. Can't we play nice in the sandbox? I mean, I think that Superintendent Collins will love to do anything except maintain a swimming pool. And he's out there, and his crews are out there busting their butts to try to give us a swimming pool. But I think the school district needs to fulfill their end of the bargain too, instead of just saying, not our problem. So I'm just asking you to please look into that, because we need to bridge the gap, not just for the sake of the swimming pool, but for the sake of the community. I mean, I'm rambling, but you know, when COVID hit and the gates were locked for all the school facilities, that had an impact on our rec program. So why are we infighting on our little shared use community facilities where we need to work together? That's all I want to say.
Sean, we had a meeting. We asked for a walkthrough, and we did a walkthrough.
Okay?
Myself and Councilman Hagan were there, along with the city attorney and city manager, and I believe some of our staff was there that worked in the field. I think it was Justin. We met with them. We discussed the issue. We had our own. I'm sorry? Jake. We had our discussion. We said what we had to say, and it's one of those situations where it doesn't look like the pool's going to be open this year.
Can I ask why?
I don't know how far we can go with this.
We can't. We can't go much further except
But if
just
you
kind
want
of
to wait
give an
after the
update.
meeting, I'll tell you what happened.
Okay.
And believe me, we're not all on the same page.
Yeah.
I think it's doable.
Okay.
Right
So
now,
anyway,
I think it's doable.
we can have that discussion in a more proper time when we agendize it or whatever, but now we can't do it. But I will tell you what happened to me. If you want to wait after me, and I'll tell you.
Can I just ask one request, Mayor Alves?
What's that?
If it's not going to fly, then I think that, in my opinion, I think that the council is doing so much, in particular, Robert Swift. So I think what needs to happen is a strongly written letter by the city attorney needs to be sent to the school district's attorney saying, you're in violation of this agreement. Because right now, we're the ones that's suffering.
I will take that under consideration, and staff will as well. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else who would like to come up and have their say this evening? Okay, is there anyone online who wants to chime in? Not hearing anyone. We're going to move away from the matters presented and move into administrative matters. Okay, receive the annual transit update for the fiscal year 2020-2021 staff.
Go ahead, John.
Mayor and Council. Don Ando, Transit Coordinator. And today I'm giving you an update on the E-Trans system. So as you're aware, E-Trans is a service of the city of Escalon. We provide a door-to-door dial-a-ride service within the city limits of Escalon, Monday through Friday. And then the bus 3 times a day goes to the city of Modesto and connects our riders to Kaiser, Vintage Fair Mall, Sutter Gould, Walmart, cinemas, and other destinations in North Modesto along McHenry Avenue, Kiernan Avenue, Dale Road, and Standiford Avenue. The services that we pay for to fund E-Trans is utilizing a combination of passenger fares, federal funds, Transportation Development Act funds that we get from the state through SJCOG, which is the local transportation fund, and the state transit assistance fund. We also get Measure K from SJCOG, and then federal transit administration funds, section 5311 from Caltrans. So collectively, 1% comes from passenger fares, 27% comes from Measure K, 69% comes from FTA, and 9% are miscellaneous funds. 1% are basically TDA funds. One unique thing about the transit operation this fiscal year, it's because of the coronavirus pandemic, we were able to get CARES Act funding and CRISA Act funding at 100% federal, no local match. So we're basically using those funds to cover the cost of transit operations, and we've reserved our LTF for streets and roads. Page 10 of the annual report, on our performance measures for E-Trans last fiscal year during the pandemic, we transported 1,523 passenger trips system-wide, of which 649 passenger trips were on Escalon Dial-A-Ride, and 874 passenger trips was on Route 35 to Modesto. Average weekday ridership's about 6 passengers a day that utilize the system. And pages 12 and 13 gives you kind of the detailed data if you would like to review that. One thing that happened with the transit system this past fiscal year is that we changed our contractor from San Joaquin Regional Transit District to the city of Modesto. This allowed better synergies for our passengers that needed to access the Modesto Area Express transit system to access destinations throughout the city of Modesto. And as a result, we adopted their similar fare structure and their similar operating procedures. In January of 2021, the city of Modesto and Stanislaus County formed a joint powers authority called the Stanislaus Regional Transit Authority. And they actually assumed the operations of MAX and START on July 1 of 2021, this fiscal year. And as a result, our contract was assigned from the city of Modesto to the Stan RTA effective of July of this last year. So as a result, we did adopt the max fare structure, which is shown on page 15. Stan RTA has since then have made some modifications to the fare structure, and as a result of those modifications for the interim, we've came back to council in March of 2022 and made the E-Trans system free, pending their resolution of their fare structure. Page 18, as you know, in the past we had to meet performance measures to demonstrate our compliance to utilizing LTF funds. However, in fiscal year 21, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Assembly and the Senate passed AB 90 and AB 124, which basically provided temporary regulatory relief to transit operators and basically waived the requirement to meet performance measures during the period of the pandemic. And AB 149 extended that through the fiscal year 23 timeframe. But for purposes for the council to understand, in fiscal year 2021, the last year that we had performance measures adopted, our operating cost per revenue hour was $85.21. That was under the standard of $153.57. So we did meet that standard. Our passengers per hour was less than 1, so we did not meet that passenger per hour standard of 2.0. And our subsidy per passenger was actually negative $17.19. So in essence, we did meet it. And that's basically saying that we generated more revenue than we had expenses last fiscal year for the transit system. And that's due to all of the grants that we received from the Federal Transit Administration. As it relates to additional transit services in the city of Escalon, page 23, we have Rtd Van Gogh, which is a service that provides door-to-door service throughout San Joaquin County. It operates similar to the Uber app, Uber or Lyft app. You can basically download the Van Gogh app, pick a destination of where you want to go within San Joaquin County, and RTD will send a vehicle out to Escalon and then take that passenger to where they need to go. That cost is basically, it starts at $5 and then it increases depending on how far you go. And the service is available 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. As I mentioned, Stan RTA assumed transit services on July 1. So as a result, Max and Start and Modesto area dial-a-ride has been merged into a service called Ride the F. And that service operates throughout Stanislaus County 7 days a week. We connect with Ride the F at Vintage Fair Mall, along McHenry Avenue, and at Kaiser. And we also meet Ride the F Riverbank Dial-a-Ride at Jacob Myers Park for those Escalon residents that want to continue to Riverbank or Oakdale without having to go through Modesto. We also meet Rippon's Blossom Express at Kaiser and at Vintage Fair Mall on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Back in 2018, we collectively with all the cities in San Joaquin County formed what is called a Consolidated Transportation Services Agency. They take 2% off the top of LTF to fund their operations, and they provide mutual benefit to all the cities in the county, including doing ADA paratransit assessments, travel training, discount fare cards, paratransit cards to allow paratransit users to ride transit in San Joaquin County for free, and a program that's starting to increase in popularity, the My Ride program, which is a volunteer transportation program where a resident can find a volunteer to take them to medical appointments, shopping, wherever they want, and the Access San Joaquin will reimburse them up to about 200 miles a month. And RTD has been the lead agency in managing the CTSA activities. Also during the pandemic, RTD brought back Route 95. Route 95 it previously operated 4 trips a day, Monday through Friday, and it connected Escalon to Manteca and then ultimately to Stockton. So it was a direct bus service between Escalon and Stockton. However, due to the pandemic and their shortage of drivers, RTD cut back the county hopper system countywide, and Route 95 has been reduced to 2 trips. Once they're able to hire additional drivers, they'll resort back to their 4 trips. Some emerging issues that I would like to bring to the council's attention about transit that has occurred over the past fiscal year. First and foremost, as you know, we use TDA to subsidize our transit operation. And as part of the TDA, whatever is left over not used by transit can go towards streets and roads, provided that there's no unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet. And we haven't had any since 2002. However, SJCOG did pass a policy back in 2019 that took effect this fiscal year, where we have to reserve 25% of our LTF for public transit. So this fiscal year, it was about $79,000. Next fiscal year, it's about $114,000. Because we don't need that much LTF to run our transit system because of the various grants that we've received, we have submitted a request to SJCOG to consider suspending or relaxing that policy for smaller cities like Escalon, so that we can redirect some of that LTF towards streets and roads to continue to maintain the roadways. And then when we are able to exhaust all of our CRISA funds and our CARES Act funds, perhaps that policy would then come into effect, because we will then need more LTF to operate our transit system. RTD has had some management changes. In February, they appointed a new CEO. So as a result, the new CEO has been reviewing RTD's operations. They were previously doing what is called Next Gen, a relook of their entire transit system. That's been put on hold while the new CEO assesses the viability of that program and determine how to move forward with that. As I mentioned, we started contracting with the City of Modesto in July 1 of 2020 to operate E-Trans. As of July 1 of 2021, our services has been assigned to the Stanislaus Regional Transit Authority. And as of January 1 of 2022, they've consolidated all of the operations under one contractor, which is called Transdev, which is based out of Lombard, Illinois, and their headquarters is in Paris, France. As a result of some of these changes, our next item that I'll be discussing is an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement that we signed with the City of Modesto, which basically changes some terms. It also talks about a termination date of their provision of our transit service effective December 31, 2022. And in the next item, I'll discuss what options we're looking at to either find another provider or do something different with public transit in January 1 of 2023. We also have launched a fare app in partnership with other transit systems in the county. It's called Easy Hub, and passengers can pay for their public transit fares on this app with us and other transit systems across the country. And that effort was funded by San Joaquin Council of Governments. For Stuff the Bus, we did do Stuff the Bus this past year. We did collect about 2,500 pounds of food, which was donated to Escalon Care. And while slightly less than what we did in 2019, since we're coming out of a pandemic, we suspect if we do Stuff the Bus again this year, we'll be back to the 2019 levels. The last thing I just want to mention is that the California Air Resources Board has required all public transit agencies to transition to zero emissions technology by 2040. And we will have to submit a transition plan to them by July 1 of 2023. And that would basically ultimately look at replacing our gasoline-powered vehicles with either electric vans or hydrogen or some type of fuel that does not emit greenhouse gases. With that in mind, I'll be happy to answer any questions about the E-Trans transit system.
Gentlemen, are there any questions for the gentleman? Good. Okay, is there anyone in the audience? Please come to the podium and give us your name, and you may ask your question.
I'm Ann Shaddix, and I need some clarification from you, because when there's a new program, I often apply just to see what the process is for the seniors. And I've applied for the My Ride program, and I compliment you for that, for having that program. My issue with it is just for disabled, and you had to have a doctor's permit. The intent of the program was if you have a family member that will drive you, you will reimburse them for the travel. But if a senior can't drive, period, why do they have to be disabled, classified disabled to qualify?
So we are having discussions with the other cities in the county about how to make My Ride a little more robust.
Okay.
And as part of that, either opening up the program so people can do more trips in Modesto with it, as well as considering including seniors and persons with disabilities into the seniors and persons with disabilities into the program. So stay tuned. Hopefully, if everything works out, we might be able to expand the program in that manner later on in the year.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. Then the second one is, then I was inquiring, I said, I live in Escalon, I need to go to Modesto to Kaiser. And they said, oh, well, we'll have to pick you up and take you to Manteca. And then from Manteca, we put you on another bus or whatever and take you to Modesto. Why do I have to go to Manteca to go to Modesto?
You do not have to go to Manteca to go to Modesto. Our Route 35 goes between Escalon, Modesto, stops in front of Kaiser 3 times a day, Monday through Friday. It leaves Escalon at 8:12 in the morning, 1:12 p.m., and 4:12 p.m. And if you wanted to use our Route 35 service, which is free right now, you can call 541-6645, and they'll be happy to take you directly to Kaiser.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
All right, thank you, Ann. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to ask any questions before we move on? If not, we're going to go to on the phones. Is there anyone on phone that would like to ask a question? If not, we will move on to the next item. The next item is number 12, considering authorizing the city manager to execute amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement with the city of Modesto to operate and maintain e-transit system. Staff.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, John Ando, Transit Coordinator. This action is to authorize the city manager to execute amendment number 1. As I mentioned, there's been changes to how transit has been provided in Stanislaus County with the creation of the Stanislaus Regional Transit Authority. As a result, they've been operating the E-Trans transit system, utilizing 1 bus Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. We are in the 2nd year of this intergovernmental agreement, and as I mentioned, this service is funded with grants and fare revenue. Since the consolidation, there's been significant discussions between myself and the city manager and the executive staff of Stan RTA in relation to the operation of E-Trans. With the recent merger of the 2 systems, Max and Start, Stan RTA has started a effort called the S-Vision, where they're relooking at how they provide transit services throughout Stanislaus County. In the opinion of Stan RTA, they find that the provision of E-Trans is inconsistent with the way they're providing transit services in Stanislaus County. They've also expressed concerns with the different reporting requirements of our service, as we have to report to Caltrans and SJCOG, compared to them having to just report to FTA and to StanCog. So because of the concerns that they've expressed a desire to no longer wanting to operate our transit service beyond June 30th, 2022. However, they'll give us a 180-day extension to allow the city to identify a new operator for E-Trans. In addition, because they went out to bid as part of the consolidated effort and selected a new contractor to operate the transit system, the rates changed from the initial rates that we were paying the city of Modesto. And the rates are now as follows: $3,837 per month for the fixed costs, $64.99 per hour for the variable cost, $102.07 per hour for maintenance, which is done still by the city of Modesto under contract to Stan RTA, and then Stan RTA's administrative cost of $757 per month. The amendment basically changes the term of the agreement to June 30, 2022, with a 180-day extension for us to find another operator for E-Trans. Transitions Stan RTA's brand back to E-Trans. Basically, they would reinstall our bus stop signs and restore the service it was previous to when the city of Modesto took it over. It sets guidelines for when they want to change fares, service delivery, making sure we get the appropriate reports to report to our funding guidelines, our funding agencies. Sets new rates for vehicle maintenance due to rates increasing at the city of Modesto. Sets new rates for transit operations due to Transdev taking over from National Express. It updates the exhibits in the agreement, and it's retroactive to January 1st of 2022. We have been exploring other options. We've been in discussions back with San Joaquin RTD. We've talked to City of Manteca, and we've also talked to City of Tracy. We are also in discussions with Stan RTA on what can we do to restructure the agreement in a manner that can work favorable for both parties. We are also talking to private businesses or contractors that can operate E-Trans directly. And we're also looking at, is running E-Trans the way it is the best model for Escalon, or should we be doing something different? At this time, we don't have an answer on what direction we should go. However, we do intend to come back to council in the fall with a final recommendation on how we should deliver transit services in Escalon beyond December 31 of 2022. Be happy to answer any questions if there are.
Are there any questions from on the council?
Yeah, I have some questions.
Go ahead, please.
Hey, John, how you doing? All right, sounds good.
There's always a little delay.
Yeah, well, this is, ever since I've been on this council, this is one of the hardest things for me to listen to. It is absolutely so hard for me to listen to this, about this program that we operate. I don't know if you guys caught early on in his speech, but 1% of the cost to operate this is paid for by the users. This is a program that is 99% subsidized by the government. Do you want to know why your taxes are high in California? It's because of programs like this. I realize that certain people need help to get to certain places and do certain things, but this is the fact that we continue to support a program like this. It honestly just sickens me. As a fiscal conservative, somebody who wants lower taxes and less government and less intrusion in our lives, to see something like this and the fact that we continue, the reason we have this, I want everybody to be clear, the reason we have E-Trans is to get the other funds that come with it that we can put into our roads, right? The LTF, every single time John Ando comes on, there's a new program. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was, the buses used to look like Vincent Van Gogh, right? The painter who lost his ear, right? We had Van Gogh, right? It's catchy. And then we had this other thing, and then we had this other thing. Every single time there's a new program and there's a new thing. And it's just for us to get these other funds that we can use. And those funds are provided by other taxpayers, right? It's robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? So I'm not in favor of this. I'm not in favor of continuing with E-Trans. It costs the taxpayers a fortune to operate this thing. If we really claim to want to look out for the taxpayer and lower taxes and do our part, not just for this city, but for the county, for the state, for the federal government, the reason the federal deficit is going up is because of programs like this. It's millions of programs like this that cost everybody and don't pay for themselves. That's all I got to say.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor Crumming. And by the way, I'm just here to move things along while the mayor's indisposed for just a second. Is there any other input from the rest of the council?
Vice Mayor, would you like to make a comment?
Don't even try, man. It's not working.
Okay.
I just need to shut off your background noise, that's all.
Okay, where are we at?
It's time to ask the audience.
All right. Input from the audience on this matter? Haven't seen none. We're going to go to the phones. Anyone on the phone would like to discuss this matter? Doesn't sound like there's anything there, so we're going to go to a vote, I believe. All right, I'll accept the motion.
Move on staff's recommendation.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
We have a 4-1. Motion carries. Okay. Let's move on down. Okay, we're going to go down to consider. Okay. That was number 12 we just finished? Okay. 13, adopt resolution 2022 approving the appointment process to fill vacancies on the city commission. Staff, please.
Thank you. Let's catch up with all my paper. Okay, so this item is returning back to council. This is the appointment process to fill vacancies on the city commissions. This item was discussed by the council a few meetings ago, and we decided that we're going to take the existing policy that we had adopted for the city council and apply it to our commissions, which we currently have the Planning Commission and the Recreation Commission. So this would be the vacancy appointment process. And so what we did is took that policy, updated it. One item to note was that currently in our local appointments listing that we bring back to the council after every election, so ideally every 2 years, there is a commission on there called Planning Commission Appointment Committee. With this policy, that committee is no longer necessary, and so we would at the same time remove that committee from the local appointments listing, and that will come back to the council in the end of December. So here is the resolution moving forward on the policy. I'm bringing it to council to make sure if they want to make any changes, any edits, edit any language. Now's the time we can do that. The purpose and intent of this policy is to set forth a fair and open appointment process to be used by the city to fill vacancies on the Planning Commission and Recreation Commission. Vacancy appointments. In the event of a vacancy, the city clerk will work with city staff to notify the public of the vacancy, which includes posting advertisements in the local newspaper and on the city's social media pages weekly until the application deadline. At a minimum, notice of the vacancy will be posted on the city's website and at City Hall. The application period shall commence on the date established by the city. An individual desiring to fill a vacancy must submit an application during the application period. The city will collect and provide all applications received within the application period to the mayor and each council member no later than 72 hours prior to the meeting scheduled for nominations or interviews. Such applications will be made available to the public at the same time. Applications received after the established application period shall not be accepted. The mayor and each council member shall independently review all forwarded qualified applications for the vacancy. So the appointment process would be as follows. At the next scheduled public meeting of the city council, the mayor and city council shall collectively set a date and time to conduct interviews of all the applicants who have submitted an application during the application period. At the meeting set for interviews, any member of the public shall be afforded the opportunity to speak to the item prior to commencement of the interview process. The mayor and city council will then conduct interviews. Public comment will be solicited and allowed again after the interviews. And following the interviews and any public comment, the mayor and city council shall publicly deliberate on the candidates unless otherwise agreed upon, set a special meeting to conduct nominations and make appointments. The council may select one individual for each available position. The affirmative votes of at least 3 council members are required for each appointment. We have added an exception to this policy in terms of Planning Commission and Recreation Commission, and that is that this process is not required in the event that the number of the applicants is equal to or less than the vacancies on the commissions.
Makes sense.
We have added that because in the past, we've had a recreation seat that remained open for many years vacant. We did fill it in the last few months, and so we're very happy that we have a full commission. And there are times where we don't get as many applications. It's kind of whatever's going on in the moment. As you can see in the policy itself, it's not limited to specific dates and times to set out the advertisement, and that's because the city council vacancy per government code has to be filled within 60 days. These commissions don't have to be filled. You want them filled, and we're going to start the process at least 3 months in advance if somebody comes up for expired terms. But you want to be able to have that flexibility to be able to appoint people, and so we won't have the hurry that we would be in essentially to fill a council member seat. So if you have any other questions or any feedback, the note is the same on the bottom. Additional special meetings may be required during the process, and that would be all at council direction to staff.
Any questions for staff?
Yeah, you know, something just dawned on me. There are times where council members will leave the meeting and, you know, while the subject is debated, and the reason for that is because, you know, to remove any specter of undue influence of them actually being in the room as you're debating it, something that they might have either conflict of interest in or something like that. There's no provision for this, huh? So those candidates are going to be in their rooms staring at us as we debate them back and forth, correct?
They can be, or we can add it into the process that we would remove them from the room. That's fine too.
Yeah, I mean,
If you wanted to go that route, I would recommend that you review all applications and interview them all separately. And so basically you'd put them all in one room, interview here, and then there'd be mini breaks in between where staff would bring them back to a room and bring out the next applicant. That way, they're all getting the same questions. We'll establish questions before the interview, but they're all not here to hear answers and such, so.
yeah, that doesn't radically
that.
change the intent of this, does it? I don't think it would.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
But that's an option if you want to go that route, if you kind of would rather have that route.
So instead
my
of
thought.
interviewing the candidates in a public forum, it's more of a one-on-council
You
thing?
could still do it public forum. We just, we remove all of the candidates from the room and take them one at a time. And then as one is interviewed, we pull the other one out and kind of just separate them from the meeting. So we can hold them in another room, keep them occupied.
I think that'd be a more fair process, so that.
I agree.
On the people that are number 8 or number 9 in the group of however many positions are available possibly.
Right.
They're hearing the same questions over and over, and time to prepare more so than the candidates may have gone first. So I think if they're individually brought in with the public and everything to ask questions would be more appropriate.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so is that an amendment we want to add to this?
No, I don't think so. I'm going to think about whether we could require them to leave if they refuse to leave, since it's an open session and not a closed session. There might be a situation where an applicant doesn't want to leave and wants to hear what the other person interview was like.
Interesting.
So I'm not quite sure if we could force them out. I'll think about that, but I don't think it affects anything before us today.
All right, so we can let it go at this point, and then we'll make the adjustment if we have to. Is that the idea?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's fine.
Okay, so at this point,
Public comment?
yes, we're gonna go back out to the public again and get some information. Anyone here would like to add anything to this conversation? If not on the phone, is there anyone on the phone who'd like to add something? If not, we're gonna come back to the council. Now, is a vote here? All right, then we'll accept the motion.
Yeah, I move that we adopt a resolution approving an appointment process to fill vacancies on city commissions.
I would second that.
We have a motion, and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we're moving down to 14. Consider the adoption of resolution number 2022 declaring property at 2310 Main Street as non-exempt surplus land, approving the form of notice of the ability, directing the city manager to comply with the requirements of Surplus Land Act, Government Code Section 5420220, and finding the actions exempt from CQ. Yeah. What is it, sequel?
CEQA.
CEQA, yeah, California Environmental
Right,
Quality
CEQA.
Act.
Okay, good enough. Staff?
Thank you. A little background and review on this item. It has come before the council in the last month or so. We own real property located at 2310 Main Street. This is a vacant 4,800 square foot property zoned R1, which is low-density residential, otherwise known as single-family housing. This parcel was originally designated as a storm basin for the Stepping Stones subdivision, which is located along Main Street between Vine and Riley Avenue. Upon review of the city's storm drain master plan, it was determined that the existing basin does not offer any significant value to the citywide system based on its location and its size. Our last meeting, we had somebody who was interested in purchasing the land and had submitted an intent to purchase. And so at that time, council had approved the surplusing of the item, and so this is us going through that process. So the California Surplus Land Act requires all local agencies to prioritize affordable housing as well as parks and open space when disposing of surplus land. New legislation, which took effect January 1st of 2020, requires that before a local agency may dispose of land that is no longer necessary for its use, the land must be declared either surplus land or exempt surplus land, as supported by written findings. Adoption of Resolution XX-22 would declare the subject property as surplus land. Upon the city's determination that the subject property is surplus land, the procedures set forth in the act must be followed. Those procedures include, number one, require the city to offer the surplus land by issuing a notice of availability, which is attached as Exhibit B to the resolution. The notice of availability shall be sent via email when possible or by certified mail when email is not possible. The notice shall be sent as follows. A, for the purpose of developing low and moderate income housing, a written notice of availability of the surplus land shall be sent to any, quote, local public entity as defined in Health and Safety Code Section 579, within whose jurisdiction the surplus land is located, and to housing sponsors that have notified the California Department of Housing and Community Development, otherwise known as HCD, of their interest in surplus land. For open space purposes, a written notice of availability of the surplus land shall be sent to local and regional park or recreation departments and the State Resources Agency. For the purpose of use by a school district, for school facilities, construction, or open space purposes, a written notice of availability of the surplus land shall be sent to the Escalon Unified School District. Number two, require the city to accept notices of interest for a period of 60 days. Number three, if the city receives a letter of interest from any of the above entities, the city is required to enter into a good faith negotiations concerning the price and terms of the sale with that entity for a period of 90 days. If the price or terms cannot be agreed upon after the 90 days, or if no entity gives notice of interest, the city may sell the surplus land without further regard to the Act's procedures. For number four, before the city may sell the surplus land, the city must obtain approval from the State Department of Housing and Community Development that it complied with the Act. Furthermore, the city must record a restrictive covenant on the subject property requiring that if 10 or more residential units are ever built on the subject property, at least 15% of those units must be affordable. The CEQA analysis, this action is exempt from environmental review pursuant to CEQA state guidelines, which applies to the declaration and sale of surplus government property. Fiscal impact, these are minimal costs related to issuing the notice of availability via email. And then attached is that resolution, meeting all those terms, explaining the process that we have to go to, and we are looking for action from council to move forward on this item.
Okay, is there any discussion here? How we good over here? How about out there? Do we have anyone who'd like to discuss this item? Basically, we're talking about a piece of surplus land that's located on Santa Fe on the way out of town on the left-hand side, which would be the south, I believe, or the north, actually. And is there anyone on the phone system that would like to chime in? Not hearing anyone asking for participation, we're going to come back to the council and I'll accept a motion.
And move on staff's recommendation?
Second.
Motion and second. Any more conversation? We move forward? Vote is, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Carries 5-0. Very good. All right, next item. Fifth, let's see, we're on, okay, we're on 15.
Mayor Alves, at this time, I'm going to be leaving the room because I'm going to be declare a perceived conflict of interest. And so
Okay.
somebody get me when we're done.
I'm sorry?
Somebody get me when we're done, please.
Can we get him when he's done? We're done.
Oh, yeah, fine.
It's like 11 o'clock and I'm still sitting in the other room. No.
Try not to forget about you. No.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Discussion. Discuss agenda item requested. Did we have somebody say something? Did I get nothing? Oh, I thought I heard something. All right, discuss agenda item request submitted by Greg Yates requesting a deferred utility agreement for APN 225-020-450 located on Brennan Road. Staff.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
This agenda item request was submitted by Greg Yates on June 1st, 2022. We were prepared to present this item to you at the June 6th meeting, but had to postpone the meeting due to those technical issues. Mayor Alves and Councilmember Crumick had then requested that this item be added to the next agenda for discussion. And so included on this item for discussion is the original request submitted by Mr. Yates. And his, I'm sorry, first the agenda item and request form as well as his letter of request.
Okay.
And then we do have Mr. Yates
Well, why
and
don't we bring
Roxana
Mr.
Schatz
Yates
in
up
the
and let him
audience.
discuss what he wants us to think about.
Sure.
Mr. Yates, would you please introduce yourself, and when you're finished, would you tell us what you have in mind, please?
Okay, my name is Greg Yates, and we're looking at purchasing 38 acres at the Liberty Business Park, and it hasn't been, it hasn't been touched since '07 when the inception.
And the land's in the city limits already, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a map that we can show this?
I brought,
I mean, for the people in the audience as well, everybody
you
included.
guys want to,
I could probably pull something up.
I think she
online
can show it.
here.
Us, if you want to give the staff, I mean, to council, they can take a look at it. Sure, absolutely.
These are just multiple copies, right?
yeah, multiple copies.
Give me the satellite. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Two copies here.
We gotta make sure not to leave for Robert, in case there's enough to go down. Looks like there is, yeah.
Okay, there you go. Why did you remove yourself?
I believe he's a customer.
Oh,
I believe.
that's good. Well, that's smart.
That's my understanding.
That's what I think you're right.
Sorry about that.
Well, there's on the.
Okay.
Okay, that's the other business. All right. All right, please proceed.
So we're looking at moving a fabrication shop out there at the Liberty Business Park. There's 38 acres that's currently for sale. It's zoned industrial, which is appropriately zoned for what we want to do. We did come in and talk to Dominique about the zoning. The zoning was correct. The infrastructure is not there to support any development right now. There's currently a well on the property, and we were seeking a deferred utility agreement. We would be in agreement to put a septic system in place until such time that the infrastructure was brought up to 120 and we did further development. But that would get the park up and off the ground. We currently employ about 100 people. We have several Escalon local residents employed. We have an agreement with the Escalon High School to get shop kids to work. And we're a growing business. So last year we did about $28 million, so there's sales tax advantages for Escalon. And then it would get the park kicked off with development. It's been sitting there since '07.
Okay. Council, are there questions from Mr. Yates?
Just specifically, Mr. Yates, just to lay it out in, a couple sentences or whatever, a couple statements, what are you seeking from us tonight?
A deferred utility agreement to allow me to develop the property before the infrastructure is in place.
So to take your business, put it into Escalon, it's going to be a great thing for the town, jobs, sales tax, et cetera. And you're asking simply for a deferred agreement to the utility connections, essentially.
Correct, to tie into the water, septic, and I think the stormwater we would contain with a pond on site. There would be no stormwater attachment to the city at any time. It would just be, a deferred agreement to tie into the city water and septic or sewer system.
Thank you.
So I have a question for staff. Has this gone through planning commission and plans submitted and all that stuff, and that's why this is here, or how does that process work?
No, not at this time.
I haven't heard of this project other than the words from the last meeting, so I'm just wondering if it's already gone through everybody else.
No, we don't have anything yet. In the letter of request is asking for this to be done prior so that he can secure purchasing the lot, and then he would go through site and architecture at a later time.
And there's a short window of opportunity. It's for sale now, right? So, and it's industrial property. It currently has walnuts on it. So I'm looking to secure it before, a farmer gets it, and it's not going to be able to develop at all. I didn't want to go through the expense of the plan, engineering and all that until we have an agreement. If we get an agreement today, then I'll start plans tomorrow.
I'd like to ask council, being that this is a business park, and I'm not trying to throw shade on it, I'm just asking them for liability reasons. If we open the door to an exception, does that mean we're obligated to every other person that goes into this business park for an exception? When would the utilities then truncate and go under the road to get to that industrial park? How would that work? I'm trying to figure out the logistics of when do we decide that that park is quote-unquote developed for services, and when every tenant would then be invoiced for that project? How does that work?
Right.
I'm looking to understand a little bit more about how this process works.
Some of the concerns that were brought to my office, through the city manager's office, again, is the general concern of when developers come and ask for a pre-approval of something that we don't even have the plans for. So it's hard, or it's concerning to pre-approve exceptions or these types of agreements without knowing exactly, for example, what type of effluent is going to go into a septic system. Is it going to be, and we're talking a fabrication shop, so I'm not sure if it's going to include metals or not, or something that should not be going into a septic tank.
No, that's why there's EPA laws. I mean, it's waste, septic sewer waste, right? That's it.
Okay, so
We'll have to get our other permits, we got to get our air.
They're not flushing metal down the toilets.
we don't know what we're flushing down the toilets because there's no project plan in front of us to look at in order to do that. I understand developers would love to know ahead of time. I understand the financial reasons why developers come to city council and planning commissions to ask for exceptions before they actually submit the plans for the project, but there's those concerns such as raised by the Councilmember Bellinger. Would giving an exemption now set a precedent? I think we all know, practically speaking, yes. Legally, no. I haven't seen a draft of the actual type of agreement, the exact wording or terms that are to be discussed. I understand the general idea, which is let us put septic and use well water right now until the utilities are brought there. Okay, there's a lot to be involved in actually discussion in some type of agreement.
Well, right now, it's on well water probably because it's an orchard, so they're using well water. So if this gentleman uses a well, nothing is changing. He's conforming to the use that it is zoned. There are no utilities out there right now. The city, in my opinion, should be responsible for getting utilities where they need to go when things happen. I think at this point we put everything on the developer, which hampers a lot of things. We've got a gentleman in front of us that wants to move a business from Oakdale to Escalon that generates $20 million, employs 100 people, and we're going to sit here and debate legalese over what actually would be good for this town. I know you, Mark, you want to take it out to public comment before we do anything, but I don't like kind of how you're talking about this project.
Okay. It's more than just legalese. I'm trying to point out, which Councilmember Bellinger was pointing out, which was there is planning considerations to be done. Not for me.
Well, sure. We can put more red tape in front of this gentleman if we want. We can put all the red tape in front of him that we want.
It would seem, I think the appropriate process is the application or request goes to the planning department, and the planning department can then give city council an actual report as to, sure, yes, no, these are our concerns, whether it's a legal concern or for them, it's going to be other concerns.
Understandable. He's going to have to go before the planning commission. The next time he can get on that's probably 2 months. By then, the property might be sold to a farmer. He misses out on this opportunity. The city of Escalon misses out on this opportunity.
And the city council has the authority to grant deferred agreement. They have that authority.
We
Agreed.
do, I'm just asking because I didn't see it in the packet. There was no agreement for us to review to make considerations on as far as timing. How long until it's developed is considered when the trigger institutes for the development to come in? Or is there a time frame in 5 years, whether anybody else builds or not, you have to put it in? And then as it builds up? Yeah, you're asking for us to consider this. I'm asking what you're.
I'm going to tell you what my plan is, right? So I have a shop, right? A 40,000 square foot shop, an office. We have 100 employees. We'll put a septic system in that will cover 100 employees. At any time that we develop anything else, we'll bring the infrastructure in. The infrastructure is not even to 120 yet, so we can't get there, right? So when it gets to 120, and there's 38 acres on this parcel, right? Nobody else is developing out there, not one other person. So if and I need about 15 acres to put this in. If I develop any other acres, if I develop it to sell it, then I'll bring the infrastructure at that time. And that would be in the agreement, right?
That seems pretty fair.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take it out to the public and have some feedback on the public. Mr. Yates, you want to stay there and answer questions, please? People in the audience, are there questions for this item? Would you please take the podium, Mr. Yates, if you move to the side, please? Thank you.
Betty Bennett, I live off of Brennan.
Yes, ma'am.
California. And so if we're going to have 100 people, is it going to be on the side where California is? That will be trying to get on 120, which we can't get out of already?
No, it's on the north side of
Okay.
Brennan. And then we would route all of our traffic north to Lone Tree and around.
Oh,
Because we
okay.
know there is an issue at Brennan.
Yeah, because we can't ever get across there anyway.
It's
All right, thank you for your question. Is there anyone else out there who'd like to have any questions for Mr. Yates? Is there anyone on? Oh, here comes one.
Haskin, wish you well on the project, but if we bypass the planning commission, questions like that usually won't get answered. That's what the planning commission, and that's what the process is for. I think it should go through the process. That's where these little details get taken care of. Then it comes to you guys with them taken care of, rather than just go ahead, build it. We don't care.
But that's not what we're asking. We're asking for the utility agreement, not to build. So every set of plans, landscape, infrastructure, everything is going to go with that plan.
Okay.
And we have to get authorization or permit approved before we build.
Okay, that sounds real reasonable, then I misunderstood. The only thing I would ask that you consider is when you give this deferment, we've seen, or this councils in the past have seen deferred agreements, and when it comes time, it keeps dragging on, and then when it gets down the road, they go, you don't have to do it anymore. You know, it's off our books, if some of us know what that means. If nothing else, there should be a time, a date.
My
5
understanding.
years, 10 years, you got to do something rather than just let it sit there.
I think we'll address that tonight, Gary. I don't think any of this is going to go by quickly. Okay, is there anyone else that'd like to speak up? Is there anyone on the phone that'd like to speak up? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the council. This is a very, very sensitive item. It requires trust on both sides. We're going to have, if we do this, we have to trust that Mr. Yates is a man of his word, and that he will perform whatever it is we're willing to give him an opportunity to do beyond the normal range of things we normally do. It would be something that would have to be drafted in a very expedient way in order to do this. We'd have to have an agreement amongst the council members once it was drafted and also our city attorney to take a look at it, to make sure what we're doing isn't going to come back and bite us. It's an unusual request. It's not normal. It's very risky on behalf of this council. But as the other two councilmen stated, I do believe this is a great project for Escalon. I think this is a wonderful project, and it fits in with what we want to do. it brings revenue, it brings employees here, which will expand the commerce in our community. It's not gonna impact our traffic to the point it's gonna drive us nuts because most of your stuff will go north, which is good. And we'll have another development adjacent to that coming in, hopefully will be in line. And between those two, I think we'd have a good situation where you could go sooner across the road than later. But all that stuff needs to be written out and addressed. Now, in terms of time, I don't know how quick we can do it and make it work. That's something we're gonna have to deal with staff. And if staff can perform it, and if this council desires it, then I guess we can move forward. But there's a lot to it. I mean, we wanna help you, believe me. I love your project. It's just, there's so much to cover here in such a short amount of time. What is the deadline for you to have an answer?
Just depends on if there's any other offers on the property, right? So I can't say that.
Have you made an offer yet?
I can't make an offer without.
With the contingency?
You can't do a contingency offer of any kind?
Yeah, we could do a contingency, but he doesn't want to accept the contingency.
Oh. Okay, well,
You know, and Ed, you brought up a point. I've been in Escalon since 1980, right?
Yes, sir.
Kids go to school here, my grandkids are gonna go to school here. And I want to support the community. I'm not some developer from outside. I'm an Escalon resident, so.
I'm aware of what you do, and I like what you do. I don't think you're a risk, but from the standards we have to deal with, it's a situation, it's very delicate, and we just have to make sure that if we do this, we do it in a way that protects this community and you. I want to protect each of us, so none of them was, and believe me, I don't doubt your sincerity or your ability. It's just, we have procedures that we have to be careful about, and that if there's a way we can do this, I would like to do it. But in the same way, I want to do it, make sure that we protect the community as well.
But I guess my question is, all I'm asking is for the deferred utility agreement, not anything on the plans, not anything on the landscape agreement, just to allow a septic system to cover the 100 people, right? And
Yes, sir.
the septic system, that permit has to be approved for the amount of people that it's for.
Yes, sir, it does.
Right, so I can get an agreement drafted up by an attorney, you know, in a couple days.
Okay.
But the wording on the agreement would be mutually agreed to.
Yeah.
All I want to know is if you will allow a septic system
I see.
in place while we get the agreement done. Because if you do, then I'll make an offer on the property.
My next question is, what type of a time frame are we looking at for this project?
I'm probably 2 years, because the owner is probably gonna get his harvest off, right, in October.
No,
right?
normally.
And then it's rainy season, then I gotta get the trees off, and then I gotta do land work, and then I've got an office to build, a shop to build, power to bring in. I mean, power's on the road, so that's not gonna take very long, but there's, you know, probably 2 years of work to do.
And in 2 years, things can happen as well across the street there. We may have another development which will enhance your ability to do what you need to do sooner, because there'll be, that line will be there at the highway, hopefully, if we do that other development. So,
Yeah.
all right, well, basically, we'll bring it back to the council. Any more discussion, gentlemen? What are you guys thinking?
I'd like to make a motion unless anybody has discussion.
I personally don't see, like, major risk here.
Okay.
I don't. I mean, I see some risk. don't get me
Sure,
wrong.
sure. It's not the risk, it's a procedural thing that we've normally done, and the staff, I'm sure, is nervous about breaking tradition, because they know that the next person's gonna come behind them and say, hey, you did it for him. I understand all that. But this is a situation that I'm in favor of, because I think the merit of what can happen here is really beneficial for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I'm
Go
not
ahead.
trying, and what I'm asking, I'm not trying to defeat the project. I'm asking questions
Sure.
to
No, I
cover.
think
And
those are
I
good
have
questions.
questions of, when you write the agreement, are there considerations for, like you say, is it a number of other developers in there that are gonna develop? Is it a time period? Is there
I think that'll all be
a
addressed.
proof of ability to perform should, let's say it's a 5-year agreement, just throwing it out there. At year 5, there's nobody else out there, but according to the contract, you're required to get rid of the septic and type in. Do you have the financial wherewithal to put that in at that point? How does this all work so that it works for everybody? It protects the city, it protects you, so it's fair for everybody, but we can still make this work. I think that your attorneys and our attorneys, they need to do some considerations and some conversations as you write that up.
Can I see that?
So that we can, try and see what we can make happen.
Some limitations, yeah. Okay, so what it boils down to is, I don't think, I'm in favor of it, but there's gonna be some conditions attached to it that protect you and us. And I don't know what those exactly are, but I know there's gotta be some. So we could make the motion, I believe, to, excuse me, we have another hand up. Yes,
Can I just ask a quick question?
you certainly may.
How many areas in Escalon that are annexed into the city don't have utilities at the site?
or next in the city that don't have utilities at the site? Well, they have close proximity.
So other than like Brennan Road,
The Brennan Road is a little different because of the jack boring. I think everywhere else we have nearby utilities that we could, dig and go through, which is not near expensive as this type of situation.
so I guess the reason that I'm asking that is because it sounds like everybody's worried about setting some sort of precedent when the main issue that our town faces with needing a deferred utility agreement is that property, Liberty Business Park area around Brennan and 120.
Yeah, I don't disagree with
Good point.
So I feel like somebody's gonna have to take a leap somewhere and have a little faith. You have somebody who has lived here for over 40 years. I work for him, so I'll get that off the table. We've known him forever. He has built 2 magnificent businesses that he's wanting to locate here. I just can't see a reason why we can't say we're open to doing this.
I don't think that's the problem here. I think we are open to doing it. We're trying to do due diligence here. We have no opposition to what he wants to do. I believe there's enough of us that would agree that it's a wonderful project. We'd like to see it happen, but we want to make sure that we do it in a way that it's sound for each of us. I don't know if you understand what that means, but what
No,
it
I
means,
do.
Okay, what it means to us is we have due diligence. We have to do certain things by law and also by concern for the community. And we're just trying to cover ourselves so when we do this, it's not something we're going to regret. That's all. And whether he's a good guy or bad guy is not. It's not an issue.
He's a great businessman. That's what
I
we
don't-
should care about.
we don't
because
doubt that.
We're all businessmen up there.
Yeah.
This is kind of the last part of town that's just been sitting. And it's the first part that you see when you're driving in from the
Listen,
Bay Area.
nothing would make me happier than do it. It's just going to take some things we have to make sure we're clear on. And if we get 3 votes, then we can move forward.
Okay.
right.
If I could clarify for council and for the public, there is another piece of land. It was on item 14 that we've been discussing, which is that strip of land on Main Street where the utilities do not reach those 4 or 5 plots of land.
But they're not.
And that was supposed to be a rainwater,
Well, there's
Yeah, there's 4 other lots behind it.
very different than.
Right, but the question is there any other pieces of land where there's utilities not going to that we've been
That's a
saying?
good answer.
And
Those
they're,
are
All right.
zoned residential, though. This is
Mr.
commercial
Stroman, would you
industrial.
like to add your comment, please?
My recommendation to you all is if this deferred utility agreement goes, I wouldn't put a timestamp on it. What I would suggest is do it based off of the occupancy of the Liberty Business Park. Because if this gentleman comes in to build the facility on 38 acres and he's there for 20 years and no one builds on the municipal park or on the business park, so be it. I mean, he's not hurting anything. But in my opinion, it sounds like this gentleman might actually finally spur some development at the Liberty Business Park, which you all have been talking about for years. And so then as the business park grows, then the occupancy of the business park grows, then the infrastructure can support it. But if he's there for 38 acres for the next 20 years, and for lack of a better term, the stuff's flowing into the septic tank, let him run his business.
All right, Mr. Stroman, thank you. Yes, we have another comment. Go ahead.
Personally, I think we should green light it. I think that, it's a chicken or the egg scenario. You gotta start with a chicken or an egg, right? So you gotta start it up at some point and then work out the small details along the way. That's my opinion.
So if we grant the right to go ahead and put in the septic tank and stuff, that will give him the opportunity to go ahead and buy a property, knowing that he has the permission to do that. But there will be stipulations, I'm sure. I don't know what they'll be, but there will be. And those stipulations will have to be met during the process of your development. And you're aware of that. Okay. All right, so back to council. Gentlemen.
We got another comment up there.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Actually, there was a deferred agreement years and years ago. I believe it was back in the 90s, the early 90s, and that was with my property. And unfortunately, you put a time period on there, so it stopped the whole development. because it wasn't close to getting infrastructure. Also, all that property was annexed knowing that the city could not provide the infrastructure. And I believe there's something that says that in order to annex a property, the infrastructure has to be there.
I don't know that for a fact.
I'm pretty sure there is.
Well, we have an attorney here. Do you know of any such law that the city or the state says that the infrastructure has to be supplied by the city?
No, if I remember right, the business plan, the whole idea is that the businesses themselves, like everything else, the developers actually bring in the infrastructure.
But prior to annexation, they don't have to have the infrastructure there?
No,
No.
they have to be able to provide capacity for water and sewer.
The city.
In the event, capacity, which we have because it's annexed. And so at that time it was annexed, we were able to prove to LAFCO
Yeah, the
that we
EDUs
have
and
the, EDUs, water, sewer capacity to
got
take
it.
it all on.
All right.
But we don't have to actually put it into the ground.
All
And
right.
then one other thing I have to say is why we're really kind of trying to push this through is I've been in direct contact with Mark Reckers, since it's been listed. And there are other people interested, and it is for farming operations. I told him that we were postponed last week. He doesn't want to take an offer from me with a 4-month contingency on it. He said, absolutely not. His first goal is to sell it. So that's why we're trying to kind of crunch some numbers. If I can go in and if we can get something resolved and say, hey, that the city's open to it, if you can give us 30 days or 45 days to get something kind of together where we feel comfortable. I mean, it's a huge purchase. And then when you look at what he's buying the property for, if he can't develop it, I mean, defeats its whole purpose.
Yeah, the price is worth, it's way more than the law.
Yeah.
So, and then the amount of money that I have to put into the property is very
Uncommon, yeah.
And what actually happened is, I believe with RMC, the developers, which was Rose, they tried to get this going, they couldn't get the infrastructure or whatever the fact may be. And then Bottini just gave up on it. And he said he put the walnuts in he put the deep well in 2013. And it's a 300-foot deep well. And then he turned around and put the walnuts in in 2015. So technically, that shouldn't have even happened, being industrial property. But long story short, he's given up on trying to develop it. He wants to sell it. He's got another project that he's
Who's the owner again, please?
Now it's Bottini.
Who is it?
He's Bottini. He's out of
Bottini.
Ripon.
Okay.
And he does developments, but he's doing one up in, I think it's close to Amazon right now. And he gave up on this, so he just wants to sell it. And he said he doesn't care, he'll sell it for farmland. But it's got a perk as being industrial zone, but
So what you need from us is an agreement that we're willing to let you put a septic tank in there, and that's pretty much gets you in a position where you can purchase the property.
yes, yes.
That's what I need, because I can't put that money out and then not be able to.
Understood. No, I get it. I don't want you to think we don't want it. I'm just trying to cover my butt, basically.
No,
I don't
we
do something
understand.
stupid. All
But
right.
it's just that he's in a predicament too,
I
because
think we
if
need
he
to
gets
get
away
the,
from us.
I think we need to get the lawyers together to get an agreement going. We're interested, they need to provide something that's agreeable to the city and work it out and get it to us so we can make this happen, but until we have that, I don't think we can, in good faith, honest, tell you, we're gonna allow you to put a septic.
Something from an attorney to allow me to put a septic in. Why can't you just say that you will?
Because it's called protection of our citizens in this town.
I'm not done talking. So if you say, I allow you to put the septic in, based on a mutually agreed agreement, then that's fine, that's all I need. Why do you have to have a lawyer talk?
I guess the question will be is if we agreed to give you the septic now and the city council that protects our interest as a city and the citizens can't come to an agreement with your council, where does that leave us? And then you bought a property and then we don't come to an agreement, what happens? I'm trying to make sure that you're protected as much as the city with that comment. I'm not trying to derail your project, I'm just trying to make sure that if we say, sure, go ahead and put a septic in right now, we say, yeah, let's work out the details later. That's pretty off the cuff, because then you're gonna have, your attorney have to write the agreement, they're gonna have to review it, you're gonna have to go back and forth until everybody is happy with that.
Can I ask you what you'd like to see in the agreement? I mean, it's a septic system to support the amount of people out there. What else do you want to see in the agreement?
Well, you spoke about when it's gonna be available to be obligating the developers of that property to truncate the lines in. There's more than just, I'm gonna put a septic in that. There's considerations for bringing in infrastructure to that that's on the developer currently in our process for the city. So I am asking for that to be,
That if I develop any more, after the original development of the 15 acres, when we develop more, I will bring in the infrastructure. That's what I said. And that would be in the agreement.
Maybe it'll help. Some of the concerns is, as soon as, if it's approved, some other people are going to go, great, now I could build out there because I can put septic as well, because the city just granted you septic. They're going to come in and say, I want septic, and everyone's going to want septic, which is not the rule. It's supposed to be, septic's supposed to be a rare exception. So in my mind, I'm thinking through in this agreement, the devil's in the details here, such as they're saying, when must you build the infrastructure to come in? My thought is, as soon as another person says, I want to start developing there, I want a septic, no, that's when your agreement would kick in that you would now have to build. And I'm not sure if you're ready for that. And that's what needs to be discussed between the attorneys as to when you're going to be required to put utilities in. And you might not like the answer, which is going to be as soon as the next person comes along, which I think is going to be soon, because I think your development, your business will spur interest in building there, which everybody's saying that's great, but it automatically brings up the problem of everybody else is going to want septic. So I could see that we're going to need an agreement that you're going to have to then bring in the infrastructure as soon as the next person submits a permit
I
request.
have one question. If he went ahead, and this is just throwing it out there, if Greg went ahead and he built that 15 acres and he had a deferred agreement, that when anything else develops, that the infrastructure would have to come, I mean, he could go ahead and subdivide that and have it all ready to go, and as soon as he sells something, then that would trigger it, correct? Then that would have to be shared, everybody bring it in.
Anybody who applies for
Yeah,
that will have to share in the
would
cost
have
of
to
doing
bring
it,
it.
correct.
Yeah.
But that, and what he's pointing out is that they want to tie that to anyone coming on board, then triggers his need to connect. They'll have to help, but at this, what it sounds like, what the city's asking for, is to make that a trigger point for him to have to connect.
Okay, but it'd be when somebody else goes to
Correct.
pull a permit.
I think that
Yes.
what you're talking about right now is not necessarily what is in front of us. We're talking about simply a deferred agreement for a certain APN number for a certain individual. Now we have ventured off into saying, what is this individual going to have to do if future events take place on certain properties? And my suggestion is, I think that we've heard what we need, and I think that we're probably ready to move one way or the other on this. What I would say is that we're sitting here talking about how are we going to get this property to connect to the city? How are we going to get them onto our septic system or our sewer system? And it's all about the city getting theirs, getting their connection fees, getting their developer fees. It has nothing to do with you running your business, Mr. Yates, and what you're going to do. It literally has nothing to do with that. It's simply, how can the city get in on your business, right? So I recognize that. I want you to know that. I think that I'm ready to make a motion on this, as I started before. So, Mr. Mayor, are we ready to entertain a motion?
I just want to remind you that any deferred utility agreement is going to come before you for review.
Yes.
And so.
What does that mean?
So it has to have your approval, so once an agreement is written,
What's the
Mr.
timeframe?
Yates had mentioned, he can have one drafted up in a few days, so he submits it, we take a look, provide recommendation, it comes to you.
What's our
What you do
timeframe?
with that recommendation.
What's the timeframe?
Our next meeting is the 20th. I don't think I would be able to make that meeting, but our meeting after that is Tuesday, the 5th, because the holiday is on Monday, the 4th.
So what timeframe, how many days is that from today?
It would be.
18, 20, something like
Yeah.
that.
Okay, is that doable?
Just 3 weeks.
Okay, so back to the motion. Your motion, state your motion, please.
My motion is to approve the request by Greg Yates for a deferred utility agreement for APN 225-020-450 located on Brennan Road.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and it will be based on, after it comes back to us for the final approval.
It has to be approved by us at a future date.
That's just the way law
This
is.
is just to move it forward to work on an agreement,
This is you
correct?
telling staff you're open to it and to move forward.
I just want to make this
Right.
clear to everybody here so there's no misunderstanding. What we're doing is we're giving the permission for staff to looking to giving this to him. That's where we're at right now, just so you understand, because we haven't said you got it. We said we're in that direction working with you. So we understand each other, so there's no misunderstanding. And I like your motion. You have a second. I will go along with. All those in favor?
Aye.
We have a, did you aye as well?
Nay.
Nay, we have 3-1, and the motion carries, so here's where we're at now. Staff will work on it, we're gonna try to get it done within that 18-day window. They'll come back to us, and I'm sure we'll have communications in between that time now to try to draft something that's palatable for both sides, okay? Thank you, Mr. Yates, we appreciate you coming to Escalon and thinking of us and your business. Okay, let's go on to the next item here. Oh, we gotta get Robert, hang on, we gotta dig up Robert here somewhere.
Oh, yeah, I went through it, Robert.
Dave's gone too.
Dave's, went to get Robert's. Okay.
It's in that file.
Well, it's a leap of faith, but I think it's a good leap of faith.
It's gonna be fine.
Let's lift this back.
Well, I believe in the guy, he's a straight up guy. But you gotta cover your ass. Okay, so now we are going to, as soon as I get my paperwork in order, the last item on the agenda this evening before we go into closed session is
Number 16.
number 16. Here we go. Discussion removal of compensation requirement for the city council. Staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This item was asked to be put on the agenda by Councilmember Crumick and Councilmember Hagan. So if a majority of the council, this is for discussion item only, and if the majority of council supports moving forward on this request, staff will prepare a report necessary with any of the future actions or potential options.
Very good. All right, gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
Yeah, so I brought this up. I asked for support from Councilman Hagan, at least to discuss it. I got that support. That's why it's on the agenda. So my request is that the city council position that the 5 of us occupy be an uncompensated position. I think it should be a voluntary position. Right now, we get paid $300 a month, $150 a meeting. I've been here since 7, it's almost 9, so I think I've made about, maybe $140. I don't know if you guys feel like the work I've done up here has been worth that. This is something to me, maybe it seems trivial. Thanks, Sean. I got the thumbs down. It's because he's on the planning commission. But here's the thing. Collectively, if you multiply 5, times 12, times 300, you get $18,000. And I think that money could do better somewhere else in the community. I think if it went to, even if it just went back to the general fund, I don't have a specific place for it, but if it went towards bonuses for exceptional employees or went to the rec fund, I think it could do something. It may seem like a little political trick or something I'm trying to pull, but I'm really not. I just feel like I think that the small town of Escalon, the city council, could be essentially an uncompensated position, and that money could be used elsewhere. So with that, I'm open to some discussion.
All right, anyone else? Who we got? Go ahead, Councilman Hagan.
My thought behind it was that would be an interesting discussion, and I think that, I'm behind it, assuming that it's going to go specifically to the citizens, that it's not going to be lost in some fund. So if it's used for something specifically that we have a deficiency in, like senior food or like rec or something like that, then I can see where it might really help. Otherwise, it would just get taken up into, the system, so to speak. It would not really do much, I think. So that's kind of my approach on it. I don't know what you guys think at all.
Councilman Bellinger.
I can say that I do more than just these 2 meetings for this city. There is prep work. I'm on SJCOG with typically 3 meetings a month that do take up my time, and they're looking to go back. I'll be driving to Stockton several times. It's unreimbursed.
You don't get paid for that?
I'm not in favor of that, no.
Oh, you don't?
No. I would be in favor of if someone so chooses to opt out, fine.
Yeah, me too.
But I don't think as a whole, I think, in my opinion, that should be the case. It'd be an individual choice.
So make it an individual choice.
Individual choice, if you choose to opt out, so be it.
Okay, Councilman, are you finished?
Yeah, I'm good.
Councilman Swift.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, I think if it's an optimal choice, if you want to go and donate your money to the rec department or any specific program, I think it's a great idea. I just think when we talk about volunteers, you know, I heard a little bit about the last discussion, and let's face it, there are sometimes I have trouble getting volunteers to pour beer at the beer booth at Park Feet. So putting them in this position, who's going to be the one getting them? I mean, who's going to be the one? I mean, I don't know. I just see turnover and turnover and turnover. So not that this is a lot of compensation we get. I think it's a good, well-intended, don't get me wrong. But no, yeah, I'm not in favor of it.
Okay, so, thank you, Councilman, Vice Chair Swift. My personal feeling is I donate a lot of money to this city annually. I buy little sponsorships. I have 6 teams this year I sponsored already. I give money to the Lions Club for the car show. I give money to the park fee. I donate money to the chamber. Where my money goes is my choice. I don't want anyone telling me where to take my money to. How I spend my money really is nobody's business. As far as the compensation we get here, it's peanuts. And if you want to look at hours, I don't know about the other council members, but I put in hundreds of hours. I donate my time to the car show, which gave almost $500,000 to the city, to the high school graduating class, but so did Councilman Swift. We both work on the park feet, which is tons of hours of time. So in a normal situation, if I did nothing besides show up to this meeting 2 times a month and do what I do, I might feel differently about it. But because I've already donated all the money, almost all of it back, one way or another, I really see no point in it. But I think that for me, the logical solution to this issue is those who are concerned that this money has a better place to be, then they need to abstain and leave the money in the coffers if that's their choice. But I think it's something we're going to vote on. Is that how this works? All right, so I accept a motion one way or another. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. And thanks for reminding me. What if we're not?
If the commenters too, that all you do is show up for an hour or 2 in a meeting and then leave and only do it twice a month, well, yeah, I can see you're overpaid. But if your councilors are doing your job, especially going to COG, I mean, there's literal hours and hours and hours
Away from your family.
of time that you spend doing council work, not sitting up there. I said, read the agenda alone, or read the agenda is nothing. If you read the packet, there's a couple hours in the packet alone to come to this meeting. But if all you do is come in and sit down, well, maybe you shouldn't be, excuse me, maybe you shouldn't be compensated.
Thanks, Gary. And what the reason I brought this up is it kind of plays to a bigger political picture, right? You know, we know that the President of the United States makes $400,000 a year. Do I think that Joe Biden currently is worth $400,000 a year? I do not. And it's hard to vote. You know, we demand, I look at our senators, I look at our state senators, our state assemblymen, their pay scales, and I go, it's very hard. We demand that they take a pay decrease, right? Decrease our taxes, decrease what we owe them, because they're not worth it. And I thought in a small way that we might be able to do something like that. And it doesn't seem like it's going to fly tonight, but I thought I'd give it a shot.
Well, I don't have a big problem with you trying to do it. I think your intent was honorable. I just, under the circumstances that I stated, I just don't feel the same way. But I do appreciate your, it's always good that we look for options to enhance our community. But then there comes the point to what point is that, how much more can a person give? So, is there a motion in favor of this or a motion against it, or how's this going to play out?
Well, I would just say, let's check to make sure there's no Republic comments
I will
first.
do that. Is there anyone in the audience that has any comment on this? If you do, please come to the podium. All right, here we go. Mr. Stroman.
I just wanted to say, Councilman Crumick, if you don't want the $150, actually $300, the Cub Scouts can put that to really good use.
There you have it. There you have it.
We'll gladly take it off your hands.
I can't get much $20 bags of popcorn with that, though.
We're not selling popcorn.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, we'll gladly take the money off your hands.
All right, thanks.
All right, very
I'll
good.
consider it.
Any other, come up, please. State your name, please.
well, I kind of like this thing. But ultimately, I understand the arguments that are going on here. You know, if you feel that you're not putting much hours and all that, some people put a lot, why not just make it the option? And as you say, your concern is, well, if I give this up, I don't want it to go back into city coffers. I want it to give it to a good cause. Choose your causes. Give the option to choose that cause. So if you want to give up your money, choose a cause. I mean, he's gave you one, but it doesn't have to be that one. There's plenty of them in Escalon. Give up your money that way. And you should have the option to give up your money that
That's
way.
how I do it. I do it my own way.
Thank you.
That sounds fair enough.
And just for clarification, the government code already allows council members to abstain from taking their money and waiving it.
Sure. All right. So where's that leave us?
Unless there's a motion, if there's,
One other question. Anyone on the phones have any input? I don't want to mess up everything. All right, there's no more feedback. We'll bring it back to the council for action.
if there's no motion, it dies and we move on.
All right, very good. There's any motion? Doesn't look like it, so it dies. All right, let's move to the consent calendar. Not consent calendar, excuse me. Let's move to council communications, and let's start with Councilman Corbett this evening.
Thank you, Mayor Alves.
You're welcome.
So I have a prepared statement. This was ready for last week. Oh, yeah, sorry. There you go. It's not the custom of this council to speak on cultural or societal issues or on the at-large challenges facing our country, but tonight that is what I want to do. We are in the midst of a great struggle, a great battle. Our society is being corrupted with lies and deception. This corruption is being fueled in large part by our government. We seem to be living in a godless country with no moral compass or truth to guide us. The concept of the nuclear family consisting of a father, a mother, and children is being systematically wiped out. The mass shootings, racial issues, and sexual degradations that are now commonplace are a direct result from the absence of a heavenly Father to guide us and an earthly Father to care for us. We live in a society that worships the right to murder unborn babies. These are self-inflicted wounds. Can we get any worse, I wonder? I am sickened by what I see going on in my country today. I will never make the claim that I am the world's best dad or husband or city council member, but I know what those things should look like, and I do my best with the feeble capacities I have to achieve that goal. I want to say tonight that this country may be dying a slow death, but it need not happen in this community. We must hold fast to the everlasting truth that there is right and there is wrong, and it is not arbitrary or subjective. The cornerstone of all good governance, in my opinion, is found in the Bible. And this week, as we kick off summer, this would have been last week, we are also kicking off Vacation Bible School season. At the church my family attends, Heritage Church in town, the program this year is called Zoomerang, an Australian-themed curriculum that focuses on restoring truth in our children. The truth that man was made in the image of God, the truth that boys and girls are different and special, the truth that family is the most important governing body. We had over 190 kids sign up this year. I say these things to offer an encouragement to others out there. All hope is not lost. And if this community, the little town of Escalon, is to remain a steadfast and wholesome place to live, learn, and grow, it is programs like VBS and Zoomerang that will make it so. So that was my prepared statement. The next thing I want to address is the Uvalde shooting, specifically the police response. 19 children were killed, 2 teachers. The police took an hour, 90 minutes. The stories change. But something I expect my police force, the police that are roaming the streets, people that are on scene, to be running towards the danger, not standing put, running to the problem. And I would just like to say to Chief, I know your time is limited moving forward, but if we can pass this on, we should have 2 officers roaming this town at all times, 2 officers in patrol cars. If there's a mass shooting, if there's an active shooter situation at any one of these schools in our town, I'm expecting our cops to be the first ones on the scene, and I'm expecting them to go in there right away. I'm not expecting them to wait for SWAT. I'm not expecting them to wait for backup. I'm expecting them to go in and start clearing rooms. And I just wanted to say that because it's just been on my mind, and it's just been a hard thing. Another thing goes along with that. This country, Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, concealed carry, took me 7 months to get my concealed carry permit in this county. And I carry a weapon regularly, legally. And I look at it, it's our responsibility to protect ourselves. You can't always be expecting the cops to show up on time. Usually they're there after they're called, right? So to the people out there, protect yourselves, look after yourselves, get your concealed carry permit, carry a weapon. You don't know when something's gonna kick off. With what's going on in society, it's a dangerous place, and you gotta be ready to take care of yourself. All right, with that being said, I think we had some good discussion tonight. I would like to ask one question that I'm not sure about. Where are we at with the trees over there on Escalon Avenue? The 18 acres? Are we still, we're in agreement, right, with Tilbury for the rest of the year?
Correct. Took me a minute to realize what property.
Right, no,
Yeah.
I went from like 10 to 1 on that.
No,
so-
yes. We signed agreements for both the 18-acre property as well as the 7-acre property outside of city limits.
When do those expire?
End of season, the contract, I believe, goes through October.
Okay, I was just
And so
clarifying on that.
in
So no action is essentially going to happen until later on this year?
until then, season ends typically around September, and so we did it through October.
Okay, all right, very good. That's all I got, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, Councilman Bellinger.
Couple questions for staff. Any update on the 120 repaving for us out there?
No, they're still waiting. They're having issues with contractors and getting start times for them. So they've got everything out the bid, they've got everything out the draft. They've just got.
They don't have a contractor yet?
They do not.
Nobody wants to come in Escalon and.
I don't know the
enforce?
exact details, but they don't have a contractor at time to move forward.
And they don't have any timeline on that for a resolution, it sounds
Yeah,
like?
they keep telling me it's month to month. They're trying. So I honestly think by end of summer, we should hear something really.
Okay.
But I mean, it's.
That would have been great to have that before summer with everybody coming through town.
It's a.
And for the rest of the community. Okay. Dominique, MSR update, you said it's at LAFCO. Is there any expectation of when we might finalize that? So we can move forward with some other things going on in town?
So this would be a pre-review at LAFCO to make sure that it is addressing all of their requirements. And they typically ask for to be pre-reviewed so that they can make any changes to it before it comes to council, gets approved, and then potentially goes to them and maybe gets kicked back. So they want to be the one to sign off on it first, and then it would come to Planning Commission and council for review, and then go back to LAFCO for adoption. So timeline-wise, it just depends on when we get it back. As soon as we get it back, we throw the staff report on it, bring it to Planning Commission with recommendations.
Seems like this has
Forward
been
it to
dragged out. I thought
council.
we were gonna get this done in the first quarter from last year. I was under the impression, so, yeah, whatever we can do to push them along, that'd be great.
And we are, and we've been in discussions with the developer out there at the Murphy Brothers property, and they are in process of timing themselves accordingly with that process and getting
Okay.
their stuff submitted at the same time. And so once
You
it
hit the
is
ground running
there,
with
they'll
that
be right
project.
there at the same time. We're coordinating them together.
Good discussion on senior housing. Please keep up the efforts, see what they can come back with. We need some sort of a project, even if it's not 100% what we were asking in the RFQ. If they can come back at any percentage of that that's close and it makes sense, then we can talk about that.
Okay.
But let's not kill anything there. And let's keep up the fight on getting that pool, whatever we need to do there. I don't know if the season's lost or not. I hope not. I know we put some lot of efforts in this community to get lifeguards, and I hope we can find a way. That's all I've got.
Okay, Councilman Hagan.
Looking at the senior housing thing, I would like to reiterate that as well. Maybe add in some of the ideas of fair market. If we can't do it in the middle ground there, like Ann had brought up, is it possible to do something at the fair market value? Obviously, you want something that fits that niche, ideally, but if that can't happen, then can we at least provide something that, maybe allows seniors here to move into those places so they can downsize, which allows younger families to move in. That kind of helps the cycle in town. As far as the, let's see, the swimming pool is concerned, we definitely need a short-term, hopefully short-term plan, but also try to see if we can't solve a long-term approach to try to get to a point where our kids have somewhere to swim so they're not seeking out the canals and stuff like that. So I would agree with Bellinger, that's something we really need to kind of be looking into, trying to make happen, but sometimes you can't make those things happen, so what's the solution there? The third thing I'd like to talk about is that, we talk about the city and being a small, tight-knit community and, not being, being against growth and like, as far as in the sense of like blowing out your city, that kind of stuff. And so it's important that we look at things like what Mr. Yates is doing as far as sales tax-based type stuff. It looks to me like this is something that would be a very net positive for our community. And so I'd like to see that expedited and try to get that dealt with as soon as we can so that it fits like the concerns Councilman Bellinger has so we can make this thing happen. And that's about all I have to say today.
Okay, Pro Tem Swift.
How many of you had a chance to go out to the farmer's market on Thursday night, this last Thursday night? I saw some, I saw Councilmember Crumick. What a great market. If you have a chance to go out to the next one, do it. The Escalon Chamber is doing a great job, and I think the market coordinator, Megan Itch, hope I get that name right, specifically, she's doing a great job of organizing that market. They're going to be having more traditional fruit and vegetable vendors, obviously, as the season goes on, but they had those that other night, too. I see a lot of local people there. I see a lot of local vendors there. And I tell you, it's been a big net plus for Escalon. They have it at Main Street Park. I think they have about once a month. I know there's going to be a July offering. Or are they going to be having? Oh, that'd be better yet. Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm telling you, everybody stay tuned to see when it is, when the next one is. And definitely, if you get a chance, get out there and take a look at it. They have food. You can have your dinner there while you shop. I mean, it's a great time for everybody. I did want to talk about the pool just for a minute. And the reason I wanted to bring it up, because I wanted to remind everybody in the room, go-to meeting, everybody on Facebook, everybody out there, that until the council direction changes, the official council direction is to pursue opening up the pool this summer, pending two things. Pending report from the city about, where we're at, on which we received that already, okay, and that was not a deal killer in the situation. And the other part is if we obtain enough lifeguards for the pool. Well, where we're at on that process, we already have 4 lifeguards, okay, for the pool, for a possible opening up beginning in July. I know there are 2 more that have said that they are going to apply. And by the way, so therefore that takes her up to 6. All 6 of those are actually Red Cross certified already. They're entering their 2nd year of certification. There's another young individual out there that does not have his certifications yet, but we have found ways for them to still get certified, okay, between now and at the end of the month. In addition to that, the Ripon Aquatics program has offered a couple of certified lifeguards to also help in case we run short. So I think the modest goal would be just to be able to at least have a public swim come beginning of July. Maybe a few hours every day, maybe 4 days a week, maybe 5 days a week, depending on the pool of lifeguards that we have. And I think a couple of them are an excellent spot to take on some of the leadership positions, like the supervisor or the head lifeguard as well. So I want to make it clear to everybody that, again, officially, we're still heading out that direction. I think we've got a good chance of doing it. Now, the state of the pool, the way the pool looks, okay, and I understand that Councilmember Hagan and Mayor Alves went out and took a look at it, and it's not in the best of shape. I took a look at it myself on Friday, the day afterwards, and it's not in the best of shape. There is black algae in that pool. There is yellow algae in that pool. you can still see, however, all the lines, all the darker blue, swim lines, and that if you're doing a competitive swim, you can see all those things. What I would suggest at this point is once we get the cadre of lifeguards that it looks like we're going to be getting, get them out there, since most of them have been there last year as well, and have them take a look at that pool. How does this pool compare to last year? And can you, with the trained eye, okay, as a lifeguard, can you see somebody at the bottom of that pool? Okay, they're going to be the boots on the ground on this one. And so, am I going to put it on them? I'm going to put it on them because, again, they're going to be the ones that are going to be responsible, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be trained. So, to me, I think the pool is doable. The water quality is fine. Black algae doesn't hurt you. Yellow algae doesn't hurt you. Does it look attractive? No, it doesn't look like a beautiful Olympic-sized pool because of that. But it is such a nice, big pool for this community to be swimming and enjoying it. You just hate to see it being closed down, at least for swim for that reason. Because what are your alternatives? Swim in the canal? Swim in the river? I'll tell you what, relatively speaking, this is a much safer alternative, hands down. So I just want to make it clear that is where, officially, we're still going down that track with at least getting some open swim for the summer. In addition, Ripon has also agreed to help out, in any way they can. They have swim lesson programs. That would be a lofty goal. I would just be happy if we get open swim. But officially, that's where we're at. If you know anybody who would like to be a lifeguard, the city is still taking applications. Get them in ASAP. That's all I have.
Very good. Okay, let's review. Tonight, we covered a lot of territory. And in terms of developing outside the city, or in the city limits, that is an area that doesn't have the infrastructure, we are moving forward on that. I think that's a good thing. We just have to be careful that we do it right so we don't regret it. And I feel like we have a good partner. I think it'll be fine. And it's going to make a difference in this community because that is a big project with a lot of potential to increase the coffers in this town. There's going to be a lot of complications, but I think we're up for the task and I think we'll do fine with it. The pool. I met with Superintendent Costa as well as Councilman Hagan, myself, and the manager. We walked around, looked at the pool. It would be an understatement to say the pool was in bad shape. And then as we walked through, we were given all sorts of information like there's broken lines underneath the slab. The cracks in the slab are because there's broken lines. The equipment is antiquated and there's a problem with the motor. And the reason they have black algae is because they had a pump that went down for 30 days that dispersed chlorine. And because that happened and you have the black algae, now they're supposedly you have to sandblast and re-texture the whole pool. Here's the thing you have to look at, and I know it's not a popular thing, but here's the deal. To make all these improvements, to have a pool that really isn't ever going to be right is scary because they don't know where their leaks are at in the vacuum lines. The pool's 2 inches short of any legal competition you can have a swim team in. The equipment inside the equipment room is antiquated and not well taken care of. So I'm torn. One of the ideas I had was, since it is in such bad shape and it's going to cost a reasonable amount of money, and I believe, what was the quote you had for us?
The minimum requirements that we had provided at the February 22nd meeting was $225,000, but the school district had indicated that they didn't have the money to put towards a pool that they're not using, and so if we were to move forward with those repairs, it would be about $600,000.
$600,000. Okay, and the lifeguards. I believe you needed how many?
And the lifeguards are on top of that.
How many lifeguards?
We need 8 lifeguards.
8 lifeguards and a supervisor?
A supervisor.
And then somebody above them?
A head and a supervisor.
Okay, so you got that cost. What's that costing? Roughly, ballpark.
So I think the expenditures were $39,000 and then another $9,000 for the immediate repairs.
Okay, so I don't know. To me, I'm disappointed the pool's in the condition it's in. I know swimming's important to this community. The solution I would have to offer, I think makes the most sense, is we take maybe 10 grand and we put it into a pot, and kids who want to swim in Ripon, we pay for, or they want to swim in Oakdale, we pay for. That pool is a mess. And if you want to swim there this year, and that's the consensus, I'm not going to fight you. But I will tell you, I think we're better served to cut our ties. That thing is going to be a money pit We're never gonna have the pool we want. I know it's a tough situation here, but if the city or the county or this community wants to go for it, it's gonna cost us a few bucks. But you're not gonna have a great pool for the next year because we only have a third input on this pool. So the rest of the time, it's not upon us to take care of it. And unfortunately, the pool is what it is right now. So think about it, whatever the consensus is in this community, I'll back. But my recommendation is you take the money, some money set it aside, pay for these kids to go to a good programs, learn how to swim, and we have to rethink that pool thing. Either go back there and tear it apart and make it right, or build a new pool or something like that. But I think to put more money in this year is you're throwing your money away. It's my opinion. You can do as you choose in consensus of the community. I'll back it. All right, now let's move on to the next item, which is, I'd like to see a chance where we can put touch pads on the back door for the council members. I'm tired of that little thing that never works half the time. You gotta beat it to death. The magnetic thing.
Wants a touchpad?
So can we like do a punch pad?
We can.
Please. I'm so tired of that thing.
We probably need to replace your device.
And that might be the case, but it still doesn't solve the problem. Okay? All right. We have an election coming up. There's 4 places up for election. 3 of the 4 are full terms, and one is a 2-year term. I'm not sure who's running for what, but it's something you should be aware of. 3 terms are for 4, and 1 term is for 2 to finish an existing seating of one of our council members who left. I think it was Legero that left. Okay, housing standards. We can build probably homes to the current standards in terms of what the value of them is. In other words, you're not going to get a break. They can probably build homes that would be smaller and maybe a little bit more affordable, but there are not going to be any breaks in there. And if that's true, I am not in favor of giving them the land or money, because if we're not going to gain anything from it, then those developers are going to have to carry their own load. Because I don't want our city money going to something that's not going to benefit my people. It's wrong. So if we're going to go that route, and if that's the way we're going to go, again, I will back it. I'm not opposing it. I'm just saying, think about what we're doing. Because if we're going to go build something just to be building something, it's no different than the development there on 120. It's just another development. So we're not going to subsidize that, is what I'm getting at. Because we gain nothing from it. Because our people are still going to pay high dollar to live there. What else do I have here? I think that covers everything I have to say. Council had a very interesting cross-section of things to bring up this evening. Thank you. Thank you for being here this evening, Mr. Yates. Hope you get it done. I'll do what I can within the legal limits of the law. And we're going to work on this, but it's probably not going to be the car we wanted. All right? We'll try to do something. I'm going to close the meeting down. We're going to go to a private session.
Closed session.
Thank you. That T1 right there.